Sylvia, a new book, you must be tremendously excited.
I am. 2.5 years working on it, yes.
And is it the type of book where that type of research was really necessary?
Yes, yes. Goes back to 1894, goes back to the Fleet Street of London, and it goes back to a time when women journalists, and there were lots of them, believe it or not, were not paid very much. And they got together and someone founded them, paid for this organisation called the Society of Women Journalists, first of all. And he was Mr. Snellwood, seemed to have a faith in what women could do, and he founded and funded us for the first 3 years until we got on our feet.
So was it the idea that in 1894 that the vote was no thing for a lady, and nor was the dirty world of journalism?
It was fermenting, and already 20 years earlier someone called Barbara Bouchon had got the idea of women's suffrage going, hadn't got very far. We got to 1908 when all the marches took place in Hyde Park. I've put a copy of one of the photographs of the Hyde Park march in my book, but that's when it really started to become well known, and a bit later on, of course, all the old cat and mouse laws came out, and it was terrible for women then. But basically the journalists were covering it, and covering it very well.
And was there female journalists covering it?
Yes, well, male and female, but the more sympathetic coverage seemed to come from the women. But there was also another side where one of our group was anti-suffrage, and she became president of the anti-suffrage movement, and her name was Mary Ward. And we didn't just have journalists, although we were called the Society of Women Journalists until 1951, and then we added writers in the title. But we've always been a group that we had the best poets. We had a potential poet laureate put up in 1913, and because of the problems with suffrage, she wasn't chosen. We've had to wait to this time to get a poet laureate. But we also had people who wrote novels, and say straight journalists, they were the first, and some wonderful writers, as well as people like Mari Stopes was a member, and Radcliffe Hall was a member, wrote about lesbianism, and people wouldn't read her books first of all, but they do now. She wrote the famous Well of Loneliness, which is so sad. And we've had Margie Allingham from Essex, wrote crime, but the most famous, I suppose, when we're talking about our presidents, was Joyce Grenfell. And we celebrate her birthday this year, her centenary of her birth, on the 10th of February, which is next week, isn't it, more or less?
So how's the book been received?
Very well, I'm quite pleased. The company heard today that the New York Times have got it, so let's hope we get a good review from them. But on the whole, yes, it's going quite well. It will take a good year to get it out there. Fortunately, I'm also the press officer, so it's in my interest, isn't it, to get it all over the place.